We begin with the sad news from the hockey world. Longtime Ottawa Senators owner Eugene Melnyk died yesterday at the age of 62. The team making the announcement late last night, saying Melnyk died from, quote, an illness he faced with determination and courage. No other details about the illness were released. Melnyk bought the Sens in 2003 for $92 million. The Sens went on to play in the Stanley Cup final in 2007, ultimately losing to the Anaheim Ducks. In 2015, Melnyk had a liver transplant after a public campaign for a donor. There have been some difficult moments for fans over the years with Melnyk's relationships with star players, along with threatening to move the team in 2017 because of dwindling attendance. Here's Sens General Manager Pierre Dorion reacting about the news from the GM meetings in Florida this morning.
He's someone that meant a lot to a lot of people. He gave a lot. He made a commitment to the city of Ottawa, to the franchise, to try and build a winner. I think one of the saddest parts about his passing is he won't get to see, I think, all the work that we all did together to try to build a winner. And I'm so thankful for him for giving me that opportunity. And I want to promise the fans in Ottawa that we will deliver a Stanley Cup one day.
Melnyk is survived by his two daughters, Anna and Olivia. Now, Sens captain Brady Tkachuk writing on Twitter last night, Mr. Melnyk provided me, my teammates, and many Sens players who came before us with an opportunity to live out our dream. The Ottawa community will miss you greatly. Condolences to your family. Tributes continue to come in from the hockey world and here in Ottawa. CTV's Colton Prale joining us now with more on this. Colton?
Matt, it's a complicated legacy that Eugene Melnyk leaves behind. For so many Ottawa Senators fans, he was cemented into their good graces back in 2003, coming in and providing stability during truly uncertain times to a team that was quickly growing in popularity, but at the height of its talent could have been moved outside of the city. Melnyk purchasing the team back in
for sale. There was a lot of uncertainty about whether this team was going to stay in the nation's capital. I think the instant legacy that I think of when talking about Mr. Melnyk is this team is still in the nation's capital.
Melnyk purchasing the team back in 2003 and keeping it in Ottawa, changing the course of the franchise and the city, bringing in millions of dollars. And although the following years brought a number of controversies, including talk of moving the team, the tributes today acknowledging the work he did to keep the Sens here. Mayor Jim Watson tweeting out, "We didn't always see eye to eye, but I was always appreciative that Mr. Melnyk stepped forward to keep the Senators in Ottawa," adding the team is an integral part of the city. Commissioner Gary Bettman sharing this image, writing the words "passion and commitment" define the man who owned the Senators since 2003. Matt, it wasn't always smooth sailing between the fans and Eugene Melnyk. Many will recall the fallout with Daniel Alfredson and 2017 when on Parliament Hill, Melnyk threatened that the team could move. But today, the focus is on everything he did to keep the Sens here, to provide this city with more than 2 decades of hockey enjoyment. Matt.
Okay, CTV's Colton Prale live for us today. Thank you, Colton, for that. I want to bring now to in John Rodenberg from TSN Mornings on TSN 1200. JR, we talk about this and you hear it from Colton. It's a complicated legacy right now, but remembering the man, and again, go back to 2003 for me, and Melnyk coming in order to save this team and keep them in the capital, which is the biggest part of his legacy.
Absolutely. Matt, in 2003, the Ottawa Senators were great on the ice and terrible off the ice. They were in bankruptcy. The Canadian dollar was about 62 cents. There was no white knight riding in to save the day until Eugene Melnyk suddenly appeared, and it was a name that we really hadn't heard. And then all of a sudden there was this person coming in who had money, who was going to buy the team and was full of promises about Stanley Cups and everything else. So at that time, it was a dream come true for Ottawa Senator fans in terms of this person being willing to pour in the resources to keep what was then a really good team together and potentially make a run for the Stanley Cup.
I want to talk about the man personally too. For you, your experience. We talk about in 2007, yes, getting to the Stanley Cup final, but hundreds of, dozens of millions of dollars that he did for the community, whether it was through the Ottawa Senators Foundation. We go back to 2015 and the very public search for an organ donor, and what led to a lot of what we've talked about as well, a lot of his advocacy for organ donation. Certainly a lot of impact in the city and beyond for what he did here in Ottawa.
I think $100 million is the figure I've heard bandied about, is the amount of money the Sens Foundation and the Sens charities have put together over the years, right? And that will be part of Eugene Melnyk's legacy here in Ottawa as owner of the Sens, is that very thing that touched a lot of portions of the community that aren't even related to hockey. I'll always remember one of the great things he did every Christmas season was he brought in disadvantaged kids and gave them a pair of skates and a Senators jersey and let them skate at the Canadian Tire Centre for an hour. And we heard actually a couple of those now adults who were kids who did that on our show this morning texted in and saying that's something that sticks with them to this day. So it's often the kind of the smaller things that aren't talked about as much that were very impactful, along with obviously what happened on the ice with the Sens.
And let's touch on that if we can, because we talk about complicated, especially in the last couple of years, whether it be in 2017 and at the outdoor game, which is infamous now too, before the Sens went on to make that run. What do you think for many fans right now too, and try to kind of, after being on the show this morning, having all the guests, all this talk, kind of sum up where fans are at with Eugene Melnyk's legacy when it comes to this organization from a hockey perspective and for the fans?
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, we all have recency bias, right? And I think for a lot of people, this complicated legacy that a lot of you are using to describe his time with the Sens is all born by what's happened, I would say, in the last, I think since Daniel Alfredsson left as a free agent in 2013 is where things started to turn a little bit with some fans. And then, of course, the comments at the outdoor game, very famous now, or infamous, in 2017. That was really the turning point for a lot of fans. And I think if you were to ask Eugene Melnyk, if you could ever have a take back on some words, obviously that was something right there. And the time since then, since 2017, we haven't heard from Eugene Melnyk nearly as much. Probably that was for the best. But I think, like with all things, as time goes on, I think people will remember more of the good than the bad. To Gord Wilson's point, the Ottawa Senators are still here in 2022, and that's thanks in no small part to Eugene Melnyk coming in 2003. So despite all the complications and all the hills and valleys along the way, the hockey team is still here, and we'll see what it is going forward. But I think people will look back upon Eugene Melnyk in time with thanks for what he did in his 20 years as owner.
KSM 1200's John Rodenberg, thank you for this, JR. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Matt.
We have more tributes and stories online about Eugene Melnyk, and we're going to have full team coverage tonight at 5 and 6 o'clock, but you can find more stories again on our website, ctbnewsottawa.ca.